everyone. Welcome to Grandma's Bedtime Bible Stories. I'm here again and I'm excited to tell you another really nice story. I really like this one too. This one is going to be about the story of Esther. And so you need to get all ready for bed. Hopefully you're already snuggled in. And if you're watching this in the daytime, that's wonderful. You can just snuggle in on the couch. But if you're in bed, then pause this if you haven't said your bedtime prayers yet. Talk to God about your day and always remember Him every day. It's so important to remember Him. And you'll learn that in the story. I want to show you my sweater. And if you're sleeping right now and your camera's not on, you can look in the morning. But I'll tell you, it's a blue sweater and it has sparkles all over the top. And the sparkles are kind of like stars. And that is part of the story. And I want you to remember that. And you can look at me if you're in the day watching the video. You can see my sweater will sparkle. And it'll make you think about stars at night twinkling. Like the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So you remember that because I'm going to tell you why I'm hinting and giving you a clue about a star right now. Okay? So hopefully you've already said your prayers and I will start the story right now. All right, so a long time ago, this is a true story. All of them in the Bible are true stories. And this is a story about Esther. Now, the story starts off before Esther, right? She's living in the town, but she's not talked about right at the start. At the very start, we need to learn about two other people before we learn about Esther. The other two people are King Xerxes, which is kind of a funny way to say a name, Xerxes, but it's spelled Xerxes. I don't think I've ever known anybody with that name before. So he was a king of Persia, and he was married to Queen Vashti. Now, those are the two people's names, and all of the people in the area, some of them belonged to Persia and to other countries that were welcome there, and there was also some people who were taken in, brought in kind of like captives, or that they had to live there. They couldn't stay in their other land. They had to leave and go to this land, and they were Jews. And some of the Jews still remembered God, but some of the Jews forgot or didn't care anymore, and they were starting to get feeling sad. And they knew that when they remembered God, and when they thought about God, and when they talked to Him in their head, and they believed Him and they loved Him, then things went good in their life. But when they turned their back and did their own thing and forgot to pray and forgot to talk to God, then things didn't go their way. And sometimes they got in trouble with other countries who would take them and make them leave their land and take them to their land, to another place, to another kingdom. So now they're here in this land with the king of Persia named King Xerxes. So King Xerxes was a very proud king, and he liked to brag and show off his kingdom. So he had a big, long party that was 180 days long. It was as long as half of a whole year. So when you have a birthday and you have to wait one whole year to get to your next birthday, this is like, that's a long time, right? If you think about it, half a year is like half of that really long time. It would be like maybe having 3 summers or something like that. Very long. So he wanted to show off his palace to different people around, and he welcomed them to come. And when they would come, he would show them and give them a tour, and they would get some food and some drink, and they'd have a party, and he just wanted to keep telling everybody how wonderful his kingdom was. And his kingdom had, he had special gardens that had blue and white curtains, and they had marble kind of stone floors that was like different colors, and shiny floors, right? And they had gold and silver couches that he had sitting around for people to sit on gold and silver couches. So he was trying to show off that part, and he also showed off all of the land and probably his soldiers, and probably if they had like animals or food, or maybe he even showed them if they had like guns or things for soldiers and stuff. He was just very proud, and he wanted to show everything off. And while they were drinking and partying, he thought, oh, I forgot. I'm having the man party and all the men are with me in this room, but my wife, Queen Vashti's having a woman's party in another room, and I want to show these men how pretty and how beautiful that my queen is, Queen Vashti. And so he sent one of his servants, hey, go tell Queen Vashti that I, the king, have asked her to come, and I want to show her off. And the servant went to Queen Vashti, and Queen Vashti was nasty. She wasn't nice. She didn't like to be told what to do, and she didn't really like the king, and she didn't like everything. She complained about everything. And so when they asked her, she said, no, I'm not going, no. And the servants were scared, because you don't tell the king no, you don't say that. And she said, no, I'm not going. And she talked to all the women, and the women looked at her shocked and surprised, but they started to think, if she doesn't have to listen to her husband, maybe I don't have to too. And they started to wonder if maybe they should copy and do what Queen Vashti's doing. And that was very dangerous, because sometimes if you are around friends who are making bad choices, sometimes it can make you start to think, maybe I could do that too. But don't do that, please. Make sure you always do what you think God would want you to do. That's so important. And it's important to have good friends, right? So the servants went back and told the king, I'm so sorry, sir. Queen Vashti said no. And he said, what? And all of the men looked at him, and he was embarrassed, and he was angry, and he felt ashamed, and he was really upset because she made him feel bad, because he was proud and wanted to show her. And he got an anger time where his anger got too big, and he didn't think about what he was doing. He didn't know God, so he didn't know to pray to God about his anger. So his anger grew, and he was furious. And so the next day he said, what can I do? He asked his wise men, of people who would help him make important decisions. He said, what am I supposed to do? She's going to talk to the other women, and then the women in the whole land will start to fight with their husbands, and then there will be fighting in the kingdom, and all the families will break up, and everyone will be fighting, and then that's not good. And so they said, well, you should tell her, never ever, don't ever come back into my room again of my kingdom. I don't want to see you again. You need to leave. Go, go. And he said, yeah, I should make a rule that she's not allowed to treat the king like that. She needs to go. And otherwise she'll make it really hard for everybody in the kingdom. So he had the new rule written, and it was read out to all the people. And that probably made Queen Vashti be embarrassed. They were kind of fighting back and forth. But she wasn't allowed to come back into the king's presence. She was making kind of a fool of the whole thing, and she wasn't appreciating her important role as queen. Her important role was to work with the king to make peace in the kingdom, not to make fighting. and to show respect for the king. And that is something she couldn't do. She had a hard time with that. She was thinking more about herself. So he got the whole law, the new law, written in the land. And it was all written in lots of different languages so that each country of people that lived in his land with different languages can be able to understand what the new rule is. So then in the morning of the next day after Queen Vashti was gone, the king regretted and thought, what am I doing? Oh my goodness, my anger got the best of me again. I should not have made that. I shouldn't have been so harsh with her. I'm sorry that I did that, but because I had this new rule written, I cannot change it. Once a king makes a rule, you cannot change it. And that's the way it was back then. Nowadays, I think if a country makes a rule, you can change it, but it might take a lot of years and a lot of time talking about it and people trying to say why it should be changed, and it just gets really, really long and hard. But back then, you can't change that law. So he was in trouble in a sense that now he couldn't change it. And so he said, well, Queen's gone now. And so his servant said, you should search and get a new queen. Get someone who can be a good queen that can help bring peace to families and peace to you, king, and peace to the kingdom. Someone who is really beautiful, but not just on the outside beautiful, but on the inside beautiful, that she has kindness and that she has a feeling of love to you and doesn't want to fight. So he decided to gather a lot of different women of different places that wanted to come and do it kind of like a beauty contest. But it was not just beauty on the outside, but beauty on the inside that he would be looking for. So Mordecai was Esther's cousin. But Esther's mommy and daddy died when she was a little girl. That doesn't happen to everybody. Just some kids. Sometimes kids have sad stories, and sometimes their mommy or daddy had something that made them die when the kid was young, and they went off. The parents, the mom or the dad, went off to heaven, and they'll see them later someday. But right now, they needed someone else to be the mom and dad. So Mordecai, the cousin, said, I will be your dad for you. I will adopt you, and you'll be my child. And I will help raise you and take care of you, so you're not going to be alone in this land. So Mordecai adopted her and raised her. And her name, before Esther, her name was Hadassah. Hadassah. It means righteous or making good right choices and having a good heart. So that was good. But then when this beauty contest came for the king, he didn't know if the king would want anyone that was a Jew to enter the beauty pageant contest. So he said, oh, Esther, Hadassah, we need to change your name to Esther. And Esther means two things. Now, I told you about my blue sparkly sweater. Esther means star. You can kind of hear it in Esther, Estar, right? There's a star, but it's Esther, and that's where it was a Persian word, a Persian name, and that she was going to go into the Persian kingdom. So he said, Esther, we'll call you a name that sounds like you're from that kingdom, so that they don't hear the Hadassah name, because then they'll think, oh, is that Jewish? And we don't want them to know you're Jewish. Please don't tell them, because different countries have not been kind to Jewish people years ago. So I don't want you to be in danger. So we'll call you Esther. So Esther meant star, but it also meant hidden. When you hide something, it's hidden away, like hide and go seek. So Esther, star, was also hidden. Her real name was hidden, and the fact that she was a Jew was hidden from the king and from other people. They didn't know. So she went in and she was with a guy named Haggai. And Haggai helped her to get ready for the king. Now, this was not just getting ready in one day. They had so much beauty, different stuff of things they had to try, of perfumes and lotions and oils and creams and ointments and all sorts of beauty tricks that they were trying to make the person look younger and smell really good and have softer skin and maybe get rid of any rough skin from working on a farm, and they would make you all smooth, kind of like if you went to a spa now. So they did that, and they did that for 1 whole year. That's a very long time to keep soaking and keep doing things just to see if you're going to win a contest. So she did that, and she didn't tell anybody that she was a Jew while she was getting all this beauty treatment done. And Mordecai worked for the king on the outside of the palace near the gate and the door, and he was a guard. So he'd walk back and he'd walk forth, and he'd go left and he'd go right and he'd go back and forth, and he could listen with his ear. And he could see little glances with his eyes. He would peek and see how Esther was getting along. And he would listen to people talking to her and her talking to people. And he'd say, oh, I love her. She's my adoptive daughter. And I want to protect her. And I have to be out here as a guard. But I can hear, and she's near me. I can hear that she's doing good. And so he would check on her. And that was really nice of him to do. And so one day, the king would pick a person, a girl, every now and then to come and meet him and see whether he liked her or not. And Esther wasn't picked different days, and then one day she was picked. He said that it was her turn, and Haggai said, "Oh, Esther, the king has asked for you. It's your turn." And she said, "Oh, this is so exciting, but I don't know what to wear. What should I wear?" And Haggai said, "Oh, I'll show you." And Haggai really liked Esther because he thought she has a good chance of winning, because she wasn't like people who are just pretty outside and then they'd be like, and mean and snooty and not nice. That reminded him of Queen Vashti. But Esther was different. Esther was kind, and she would talk, and she would look at Haggai, and she would talk to other people, and she'd ask them how they're doing, and she would give them some love and some hope and help, and she would talk with them, and she'd try to find out if everything's going good in their life, and she was really caring about people. And he said, "Oh, I think she would make a better queen than some of these other girls here, so I'm going to help her extra special." So not only did she all that time have special food that he gave her, as well as all the perfumes, but she also had her own room, and she had 7 servants, and they said, "Oh, let's all try to help Esther win the contest." So when the king asked for Esther, she already had all this extra help, and she asked Haggai, "What should I wear?" "Oh," and he went over to her closet. "This one, wear this one. This is beautiful." "Oh, yes, Esther, that's beautiful." And "Oh, put on this jewelry. Put this on. Yeah, put that on. Beautiful. Yes. Oh, Esther. Yeah, and these earrings. And well, why don't you put on this crown on your head? Oh, yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh." And he was putting perfume on her and getting her hair all probably done up fancy, maybe at the top like this, or maybe she had it like beautiful curls. I'm not sure how she had it. She could have had it half up, half down. So, anyway, she was excited, but she had never been in the palace to meet the king before. But she went in, and what would happen is she would meet with him, and then she would have to wait the next day to find out whether he said, I didn't really like her, or maybe he'd say, "Wow, I just couldn't stop thinking about her. I think I want Esther to be my wife. I think I want her to be the queen." So she had to wait. So she went and she saw him and she met him. And she had a very wise heart. She was very smart. She's very kind. And It was exciting. She was beautiful, inside and out. And King Xerxes met her, and he loved her. He thought, wow, I really like her. So it was pretty exciting because he had never met anyone like her before. But you see, the whole time, God knew that there was trouble coming. There was trouble coming to the Jews. And he knew that he had to make a plan ahead of time to try to get Esther into the kingdom, because Esther needed to be like a star in the sky that helps the ships to know where to go, that helps you in the night when you look at the moon or the stars. The sailors in the boats will know where to go. And in life, we need to look to God to give us hope. And Esther was going to be that person that he needed to get into the kingdom, to be married and friends with the king, so that he could then help his people when this trouble is going to come. So that was so important. God was already working, and they didn't know. They just thought they were going to. So she was at a beauty pageant, and she was getting ready for a year, and then maybe she'll get picked, maybe she won't, she thought. But God knew, oh no, I'm going to make sure you get picked. I'm going to help you to be beautiful on the inside where it matters more, because the outside will disappear as you get older. It'll slowly start to disappear. But the inside will last and keep getting better and better through time if you let me help you, God says. That's the part that's important. So Esther was the best of all of the girls that the king met. He was really excited. And he wanted to be kind to her, and he wanted to listen to her, and he kept asking her questions, and he let her share her heart. And he said, oh, she's amazing. She's wonderful. And he loved her answers. And he loved just talking with her. He's like, I have a friend. This is amazing. So the king picked her. And the next day she found out he picked her. She was so excited. Oh. And so the king had a party. He called it Esther's party. And he had a party to show the people all in the kingdom that this is who I pick. Come, look at Esther, meet her, talk with her. Look at how beautiful she is on the inside. Oh, it was wonderful. She had a big, big banquet, lots of food, lots of drinks, and he gave gifts to people. And he said, nobody has to pay taxes, maybe for that month, I'm guessing, and said, give you some money that you get to keep to yourself. You don't have to give it to me. You can keep that money, and it's my thank you to you and my joy of having Esther in my life. And he wanted to share that joy with people. So that was pretty exciting. But Esther still, the other meaning of Esther, besides star, the other one is, do you remember? Hidden. She was still hiding the fact that she was a Jew, because Mordecai, her adoptive daddy, said, don't tell anybody, because this particular group of people, for some reason, with no reason at all, just because God chose them, some people around the world have hate, and that's not good. You're not supposed to hate people. So Esther still didn't say anything, and she listened to her daddy. So another day happened after that, and Mordecai, her adoptive dad, is doing his guard job, and he's standing with his spear and maybe a shield, and he's standing out by the king's gate, by the door of the gate. And all of a sudden, he could hear whispering, and he listened, and there's two men talking around the corner. They didn't see him. And they're around the corner, and he recognized their voices. He's like, I know who they are. And they work for the king. What are they saying? Oh, and they started to talk, and they were angry at the king. And he's listening again. And they start talking about how they want a plan to kill him. That's terrible. And the guard, Mordecai, the guard, is supposed to protect the king from danger. So he went and told Queen Esther, his daughter, who's now married to the king. He told her what these two men, what their names were, and what they said, and what they planned to do to the king. And then Queen Esther went and told the king, King Xerxes, about how Mordecai outside the guard, but she might not have said that she was related to him, but she just said Mordecai outside said, this is going to happen. These two men are planning to kill you. And the king said, thank you for telling me. This is terrible. And he went and got the police, and the police went and got those two bad guys, and they had to be killed for trying to kill the king, because that's a big, big, serious crime. You don't do that stuff for sure. You don't try to kill people, especially leaders and kings. And so she told the king that this happened. And so that was good. Mordecai had done a good job. So what happened is, though, the king forgot to do anything to reward Mordecai. He just started to think about, wow, I'm glad I'm still alive and no one hurt me. And he forgot all about thanking and giving a reward to Mordecai. So next, after that, instead, there was another man called Haman who was working in the kingdom. And he was more on the inside near the king. And Mordecai was an outside worker at the door as a guard. So Haman was more inside. And the king just decided one day, you know what, Haman, I would like to give you a better job. I'm going to make you have a more special, higher up job that's more important. And then all the princes and all the different other smart people here, I'm going to put you up at a bigger, more important job. Now, I don't know why the king decided to do that. But when he did, Haman thought, wow, that's amazing. I must be so wonderful. And it went to his head, isn't what we say sometimes, meaning that he, instead of just saying thank you and being humble, he started to get proud. And he started to think that he was so important. And that can be dangerous. So people started to bow to King Haman, or not to King Haman, sorry, started to bow to Haman, the man who just got the bigger, most big, important job. And Haman started to walk around with his nose in the air. And he wanted everyone to bow. And people would bow, and people would bow, and people would bow. And he would walk through the land. But when people were bowing, he was looking up in the air. He didn't see what was happening. But someone else said, Mordecai's not bowing to you. That makes me think of sometimes at school. Sometimes you have other friends tell on other friends or other people in the class things they're not doing. And that's what they did. They told Haman. And Haman wanted everyone to worship him like a god. He's not God, but he wanted to be treated like God. That's very dangerous. Only God is God. His heart inside was not light and love. It was dark and hate. Haman was a hater. So that was horrible. He was so mad that Mordecai wouldn't bow to him that he wanted to kill Mordecai. That was terrible. So some people started to ask Mordecai, why won't you bow to him? And Mordecai said, I only bow to my God. Other people, if it's a king, I might lower myself, but just to other people, God is my one and only one. I have to respect the king, but I am not just to go around bowing to people just because they wanted to be treated like a god. There's only one God, and I just bow to him. And otherwise, God warned us in the Ten Commandments. He said, don't have any other gods before me, and to not make any idols, and don't bow down and worship other people or things. Only me, only God, he says. So Mordecai was obeying the right thing with God. But Haman was filled with hate. And he started to think that he would try to kill Mordecai. But then he started to think, maybe instead of just that one, maybe other Jews people as well think that they shouldn't bow to me, so I will also make it so that maybe I can make it so that they can all get killed, not just one. Maybe I can kill all of them. So he had a bad, evil plan that was not good. So what he did was he went to the king and he wanted to talk to him about what he should do. So he first, before he went to the king, he had these little sticks that we talked about the other day with all the pens and the different sizes and how there's one stick that's shorter and then the rest are all long. He was trying to pick them out to decide what month can I do it? What month will I hurt and kill all the Jews? And he sort of pulled them out, and it turned out that it was going to be 1 year later. So he had to wait 1 year for it to happen. But he went right away to the king, and he started to say, he didn't say they were Jews, but he said, there's this certain group of people. There's a group, and they have different rules than us. And they kind of live off to themselves. They're in our land, but they kind of have their own rules, and they go to their own houses, and they'll meet together in their own groups, and they do their own thing, and they worship their own God. They don't worship your 12 gods or fake gods. For Persia, they were pretend, and they didn't have the real God. They worship 12 fake pretend ones. But the real one is the one that's God of the universe, God of the Hebrews, of the Jews, and God of us as Christians. That is the real one. So he said, they're not obeying you. They're not really doing things the Persia way. They're not following the ways that everyone in Persia lives. And so he said, I'll give you a lot of money to pay to the soldiers that could kill all of these people. And it's terrible. But the king, he said, you know what? It's going to be better for your kingdom, King Xerxes, if you get rid of these troublemakers, get rid of these people who live different. And King Xerxes, he didn't really think things through very good. I don't think he was a really great king, because he immediately said, yeah, that sounds like a wonderful idea, which I don't think was very smart at all, because he didn't actually know that he would be fighting against the real God of the universe. And that is someone you do not want to fight against, for sure. So he actually just quickly gave away his special king's ring. He had a special king's ring, and he just took it right off and said, here, Haman, you write down a new rule, whatever you think is best. Write my name on the bottom yourself. I won't be there. I don't need to write it. Just write it. Make it up. Whatever you think's best. And then just take the ring and stamp it with my king ring. And that gives you the power to change the rule. Okay? Awesome. And he was not trying to be a king where he should make the rules himself, and he should understand what he's signing and what his ring is stamping, because that shows the power of the king. He didn't understand. He just gave all the power to Haman to do it. I think he was kind of acting lazy, and that's not good. So Haman was so excited to get the power, because he already thought of himself as being powerful, and he wanted to have the power like a god, and he wanted to be like the king, and he wanted to go and change rules and hurt people, and that's not nice. So he changed it, and he sent it out on all the different land, he said, 1 year from now, we're going to kill all the ages, men, women, children, and take and steal all their stuff. And it's only group of people we're going to do this to? Jews. And wrote it right on. And see, the king didn't know that, but everyone else did. And he sent it out on really fast horses that thought, we're bringing the king's message to the next town. And they ran over here. Here's the message for the king. I gotta go. over here, oh, here, take this, read it, okay. And they would run and they'd deliver the messages, and maybe sometimes when they're there, they might have even like taken the paper and pulled it out and read it. Hear ye, hear ye. The king Xerxes of Persia says, 1 year from now, we will kill all of the Jews. And the Jews who were listening would have been like, my goodness, that's going to be me. That's going to be my family. They were so upset. It was horrible. So after that, the king didn't know, and Haman was happy inside his heart because he made a really bad choice, and he likes bad choices because he's filled with hate. So he and King sat down, had a lovely little meal, and talked and just were relaxed and didn't even know that this trouble was going on and all this bad news was going around scaring everyone in the whole kingdom, in the city of Susa. So they were confused, they were upset, they were scared, they didn't like, what did you hear? What does this mean? And they were all talking to each other, but inside the palace, the king was just living in his little dreamland, eating his special foods and meats and desserts and drinks and talking with Haman, and they just did not even know all of the pain and suffering and scary fear that was happening in the people that were his kingdom people that were out there in Persia, Jews and other people. Other people don't want soldiers running around killing people. What if they think they're a Jew and they kill them by mistake too? They don't want to have wars and fighting. So this was a big thing that happened that scared everybody. But the king and Haman didn't know. So it was a horrible, horrible rule. And some of the people in the city of Susa, they were actually friends with the Jews, and some were even married to them. So all of a sudden, their family was going to have horrible things happening in 1 year. So Mordecai, he found out. Mordecai was mortified. Mortified means like horrified, like so shocked, mad, upset, just feeling like death was already coming onto his heavy death of feelings of fear was on his head and heart. He was mortified. It was horrible. So he tore his clothes. He just ripped his clothes, and he put on scratchy potato sacks called sackcloth, and he threw ashes of old gray, dusty, dirty stuff all over his hair and his head and his clothes, so people could look and see and know he's grieving, he's upset, he's sad. And so he did that, and he started wailing. Ah, ah. He was so upset, wailing loudly, and he was so just like in his heart, horrible, horrible feelings of God help us, God help us, have mercy on us, have mercy on us. Oh, and he turned his heart right to God. He went out in the middle of the city, and he went up near the king's gate, but he didn't go to work. He had all these old clothes on, and he was crying, and he had sackcloth, ashes, and he laid in the street. I think he probably wanted to get close to Queen Esther, so maybe she could look out and see him, or maybe somebody would give the message. I'm not sure. So he lay down out there on the street, really close to the kingdom. All of the Jews did the same thing. You could hear crying and wailing all across the land, out people's windows and out of the palace. And it was like, what is going on? Because not everybody knew about this rule, especially in the kingdom. I don't think they knew in the kingdom, but they knew outside of the kingdom. So all of the Jews started to pray and crying out and weeping, and they were fasting, which meant they didn't eat and drink, and they were like trying to just ask God to please come. Emergency. It'd be like when you have an emergency and you call for help, right? And they were calling him for help. We are having an emergency right now, and they need his help so badly. So Esther's servants came, and they told her, we've seen Mordecai. He's out laying in the street, and he is so upset. And he's wearing sackcloth, old clothes. And Esther said, That's strange. Here, give him some of these nice new clothes and bring them out to him. And they walked out in their fancy clothes. They carried out the clothes to Mordecai. And he's like, go away, go away. No, I don't want your clothes. Just go away. And so they went back in the palace and they said, oh, dear Queen Esther, we tried to do what you asked. We tried to bring him these clothes and he pushed us away and he said, no, go away. And Esther's like, what is going on? And so she had a servant that named Hatak. And she needed to find out what is going on. Hatak, can you please go out and talk with Mordecai? So Hatak went out, and he went out of the palace and walked down the stairs and went out to the street. And he's like looking at Mordecai on the ground. He's like, Mordecai, Queen Esther sent me to ask you, what is wrong? And Mordecai told him that he heard that Haman said he would give money to any soldier who would kill the Jews, and that they're all going to be killed, and it was going to happen in 1 year, and that the king wrote a new rule, and he made it so now it can't be changed, and it's there, and it's going to happen. So it was something that really surprised Hatak. Hatak didn't know about the ATAC, right? Hatak and ATAC. There's going to be an ATAC or an attack on the Jews. Oh dear. So he went and Mordecai said, Here, take this paper. This is what I got. This is one of the rules of the king, and the rule was written out on a paper, and a whole bunch of papers that were passed out like newspapers and like letters, and we all got one, and this is saying right on it, and it has this king's ring over and over and over on all these different papers. Look, bring this to Queen Esther. She needs to know. Please. Oh, so it was pretty bad. I need her to believe me, Mordecai said. She needs to believe that this is true, and I need her to help. She needs to go in to plead and beg for the king to save us, and she also needs to tell him we are her people. And now he's telling Esther, it's time to stop being hidden, time to stop hiding and not telling people you're a Jew. Now I need you to tell the king you are a Jew. This is so important. You need to stop from being the secret to being the truth, because now what I feared before, what I thought, how people sometimes treat Jews badly and want to kill for no reason, it's going to happen now. So she needs to step up and be brave and go and try to save us. Have mercy. So Hatak went back inside, up the stairs and into the palace, and told Esther. And Esther said, Hatak, you need to go back outside and tell Mordecai another message. Tell him that I can't just go into the king and talk to him whenever I want, because I could be killed for doing that, because I wasn't invited. I can't just go in and say, I need to talk to you. If I do go in and he's in a bad mood, then I'll be sent away and killed, and I don't want that to happen. And so you have to tell Mordecai that it's not as easy as he thinks for me to go do this. So she said too, the only way if I do go in to see him, if he's in a good mood, is if he holds out his gold scepter. And holds it out to me, which is like a long gold special pole that a king would have, and on the top would be sort of a round ball. It would have a design on it, and it would show that, and it may even have a jewel, and it would have it would stand there in the king's hand, and he would order things with it, good or bad. And if he pointed it out to you when you came in when you weren't invited, then if he didn't want you there, he would keep it and he wouldn't point it out, and you would be in trouble. He might even point with his finger and say, "Be gone, send them off to jail." Or maybe even worse. But if he did want to hear from you, he would give you mercy, and he would extend out the gold, and you would touch the top. And that would show that you both agreed that you could speak to the king and he wasn't going to do anything to harm you. So she said, that's the only way, is if he does that. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. And he didn't even ask to see me in 30 days, which is a month. It's a long time. He didn't even ask to see me. So Mordecai, just please go tell Mordecai this, Hatak. So Hatak left the palace, went down the stairs, over across again to the courtyard outside, and he told Mordecai. And he said, and after he told Mordecai, Mordecai said, well, you need to tell Esther this now. I think Hatak was getting tired of going up and down the stairs and in and out, but the whole thing was happening secretly because it was supposed to be a secret message to Esther from Mordecai. And it was supposed to be that when Esther's inside talking to Hatak and answering, that the king wouldn't hear and no one else working in the palace would hear, because it was a secret plan to try to help save the Jews. So Mordecai said, well, you tell Esther this. Don't think that just because you're married to the king and you're living in the palace that you're going to be protected. I know he loves you, but you cannot trust that man, because he changes his mind and he's wishy-washy and he's not really being a good king. He let Haman make this bad rule with his ring and writing down the king's name. You can't trust that he's going to protect you, Esther. And you got to remember that he will find out you are a Jew too. And then he might just kill you anyways, just like us. And he might put you in our group and kick you out of the palace like he already kicked out Queen Vashti. So if you stay silent, though, and don't try to help, when I feel in my heart that God has put you in the palace to help us, if you stay silent, God will find someone else to be the helper. But he may not necessarily protect you and me, like Mordecai, Esther, and all the different Jewish people in her family. He says we might still be killed, but someone else will be able to work for God and help God in this mighty way. So he says, you never know. I think God actually arranged and had it so that he planned to have you in there, queen, to sit beside the king and to talk with the king and to be able to go before him and to have the king like you. And so I think that this is all God's plan, and we really need to trust God. I think the king will listen to you. So he's just saying, you really need to speak up for us, Esther. So she prayed and she thought it over. She tried to get strength, and God gave her strength to obey and helped her to be stronger in her heart. So she said to Hatak, okay, you need to go tell Mordecai to get all the Jews together and tell them this message. Everyone is supposed to fast now for no food and no drink for 3 days. The next 3 days, I want you all to do it together to help pray God's help to support me and keep me safe, because after that, I'm going to fast too, and all my servants, we're all going to do it. And right after that, I will go in and see if I can talk to the king. If I get killed and I have to go right to heaven, then that must be what God has chosen for me. But if I don't, then the king holds out his gold scepter to me and allows me to touch it and come talk with him, then maybe it's a chance where I can speak to the king and protect the people. So she put on her special robes. She put on extra special, beautiful queen clothes and a queen crown and perfume and jewelry, and she tried to look extra special. And she went and walked in to this inside courtyard, which was really near the king's throne, and the king was sitting there. He's probably just thinking, or maybe he was like listening to some music someone was playing, or maybe somebody was reading some information or books to him. And then all of a sudden he looked, and he saw his queen, and he hadn't called for her to come in a long time. But when he saw her, he was happy to see her, which is really good, because then he put out his gold scepter, and she came up and touched it, which means, oh, thank you. And in her mind, she's thinking, thank you, God, for hearing our prayers as we prayed and fasted for my protection, to have an opportunity to be able to have the king happy to see me and to be able to help to give whatever message you have, Lord. Please give me the words to say. I don't know what to say. Please help me. Give me courage. I'm scared. Make me brave. So the king said, my dear Esther, what is your request, Queen Esther? What would you like? I'll give you even up to half my kingdom. And she said, well, if it pleases you, if it makes your heart happy, could, and she was thinking, God, give me the words. God, give me the words, please. And then she thought, God gave her the words. She said, if it makes you happy, Lord, my king, I would like you and Haman to come to a banquet that I will get ready for you of food and fun. And the king said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. I haven't been to a banquet in a while, and I love that. Thank you. So he excitedly asked his servants to go tell Haman, go get him, go tell Haman we've been invited to a banquet. And so they go to the meal, and while they're eating the meal and the music is playing, and there may even be a dancer dancing and trying to make it fun for the party, Queen Esther keeps praying in her heart, what am I supposed to say now, God? What do you want me to do? Haman's now in the room with us, and it's scaring me. Haman wants to kill me and all of the Jews and my dear Mordecai and everyone I love. We need you, God. We need you to protect us. I don't know what to say and do. Please tell me what to do and say. Should I say something? Should I do it now? Like, what should I do? And while she's thinking those thoughts, then the king asks her, what can I give to you, my queen? What is it you wanted to ask me? And he said, I'll give you up to half my kingdom. He keeps offering half the kingdom. But she doesn't want the kingdom. And that's something important, because some people, they just want money or things to own or power. But she wants life for her people, and she wants joy and peace, and that they can grow up and keep having families and babies and still grow and still love God, and not have them so that they're all gone and so no one on the earth anymore worships or loves God. She needs people to stay, and God needs people to stay on the earth that love God. So at the very end, when he asked her, she didn't know what to say. But then God spoke in her heart again. Invite them back tomorrow and do the same, another meal, another different types of food and different types of music, and have another party, do another banquet. So she told them, she said, if I have found favor, if you're happy that I'm in your life, to the king, and if it pleases you, makes your heart happy, Lord, if you will grant what I'm asking, and if you will do what I'm asking, I want to know if you will come tomorrow, and when you are there, then I will answer your question. I want you to come to another banquet, another party tomorrow. I will prepare it. It'll be at such and such a time, 3 o'clock, let's say, whatever. And I will then, I will answer the king's question if you and Haman will come tomorrow. So Haman left super excited. Oh my goodness, I wasn't just invited once, and I was the only person invited to the meal besides the king. I wasn't just once, it was twice. Oh my goodness, I am super special. But meanwhile, he didn't know that God is trying to get Haman to a place where he will think about what he's done and give him a chance to stop it and to change his mind and his heart and to actually be able to be forgiven and helped by God. But he went instead, and he went home, and as he was walking home, he walked by Mordecai, and Haman was feeling so excited about being invited a second time to the party the next day. But when he saw Mordecai, he was immediately enraged. He was filled with hate again, and he wanted Mordecai to be killed, but in his mind he thought, I don't need to kill him. I know that in 1 year, all of them will be killed, and Mordecai will be in the group. I will just wait for that 1 year to get other people to do it. The soldiers will do it. If I do it right now, I'll be in trouble for murder. I'm going to let the soldiers do it. And so he was really angry because Mordecai would not bow to him. And Haman, wanted to be treated like a god. And God, the real one, was jealous and saying, no, there's only one God, me. Anyone else? No, you're not allowed to be God, only me. And God, our God, is full of love and fairness. So Haman went and he got his friends together and he went to his wife and he started bragging to them about all the special things that have happened in his life lately. He's like, look at all the money I have, and I am working for the king. He gave me a big job, and now I even can write rules in his name and stamp them with his ring. And I have 10 sons. Look at all the sons I have. And look all the ways the king's helped me. And I didn't just get invited once to the banquet. I was invited twice, 2 days in a row. Maybe I'll be invited every day. I wonder if they're going to invite me to maybe I'll start living in the kingdom. I wonder if there's something extra big and special waiting for me up ahead. And his mind started to imagine. So every time, though, he even told his family and friends, he said, I'm so happy, but every time I see Mordecai sitting at the king's gate being a guard, I just get so filled with rage and anger. And his friends and his wife said, well, if you don't like this Mordecai, why don't you just go and build like a stage and with a wooden pole up and a rope and make it so that would be something that you could hang Mordecai on and he could die. And then you go ask, after you build it, then you go ask the king in the morning, and after Mordecai's dead, then you can just go and celebrate and have the banquet then with Esther and the king. So they were trying to think, maybe you can get rid of this problem. And God doesn't think people are problems. God thinks people are special and loved, but they don't always believe in his love, and they don't always feel special. Sometimes they're like Haman, and they're filled with hate and rage and anger and wanting to kill and hurt people. That's not right. So Haman was delighted, and he liked the plan, and he actually got some people to build the stage with the wooden post and the rope. And he thought, okay, that's the gallows. They're built. So then his plan was already in the works. But God had a plan that was in the works too. God caused the king to not be able to sleep that night. He asked his servants, can you bring me a book? The book of records of history. I just can't sleep. I'm wide awake. I'm bothered. I don't know why I can't sleep. But God was trying to get him to look in this book that he asked for. So the servants came and they started to read it, and he said, maybe you can read to me and I'll fall asleep because it's kind of boring stuff. So they started reading it, and they're like, do you want us to read at the first, like the most recent entries, or like where do you want us to start? He said, yeah, just wherever you want. He said, okay, well, most recent entry here in this book is Mordecai saved your life by telling Queen Esther, who told you about the 2 men who made a plan to want to kill you. And he said, oh, right, I remember that happening. That was wonderful. Mordecai is a great guy. That was really good. But then he started to think. He's like, well, what gift did we give him to say thank you? Did we give him a thank you gift? Do we do anything to say thank you to Mordecai? And they looked in the book. Nothing's written here, Your Honor. There's nothing here, no gifts given yet. He's like, what? Can't believe we didn't give that gift. So in the morning, right when he was thinking about the gift, because I think he fell asleep first when they read the book, and then he woke up in the morning and thought, did we ever give a gift to this Mordecai? So now, right when he's talking about that with everybody, then Haman just walked in. The gallows were just built. He's thinking in his mind, I'm going to go ask the king if I can kill Mordecai because I hate Mordecai. But the king is thinking in his head, I want to honor and bless Mordecai for being such a wonderful person. He just saved my life. But Haman didn't know that the king was thinking of Mordecai when he was thinking of Mordecai, both in different ways. So Haman just walked in, and the king said to Haman, hey, Haman, what do you think should be done to a man that the king wants to honor? And the Haman thought, he must be talking about me. He must want to honor me. Well, king, I think you should do this. And he's thinking of things he would want done to himself. He said, I think you should give him a royal robe. And you should give him a horse, like one that you rode before. Yes, one that you rode, king. Oh, and make sure there's that special, like, hat part on the horse that makes him look like a royal horse, so people will know that it's the king's horse. That's important. Oh, and then you should parade the man through town. I think you should, like, put him on the top with the robe and, everything, and pull this special horse through town. And at the same time, you should call out, this is what is done for the man the king is delighted to honor, so everyone will know. So he was excited. He's like, that's what I would say you do. Why do you ask? And the king said, oh, well, because I want to honor Mordecai, because he just saved my life and he never got a reward yet. And as he's talking, Haman is like filling with hate and anger because he wanted to get the prize. He didn't want Mordecai to get the prize. He's being jealous. So then he has to be the one. The king said, hurry up, do all these things you just said to Mordecai. And so he had to obey, and he took Mordecai and put the robe on him and got the horse that the king had ridden, and the one with the special helmet kind of whatever design that might be on a horse, or maybe it's like a big fluffy feathery hat, I'm not sure, but it shows the kingdom, the stamp of the kingdom, like of Persia and city of Susa. So King Xerxes, it would have something on as a picture to show that it's really his. And so it would make this person look like everyone should respect and honor this person. That's what Haman wanted. He wanted everyone to honor and respect him. So he had to go and parade him around and call out this message about this is what is done for the man the king is delighted to honor. And he was just like, arr. He was mad. So after that, then King Xerxes said, Mordecai, please come back to work. So he came back to work, but instead of working outside, he came and he started working. Oh yeah, he worked outside at the king's gate, again, as a guard. So Haman couldn't go in the palace that day. He was so filled with anger, embarrassment, rage, fury, jealousy, bad feelings. So he went home. He wanted to tell his friends and family and wife everything that happened. He wanted to kind of tattletale, and he wanted somebody to try to help him not to feel so horrible and angry inside. So he told them what just happened. He wanted them to hug him and say nice things, but instead they could feel inside their heart God's warning message, giving Haman a chance to say sorry. And their warning message changed. Before they said, build the gallows, get rid of that guy Mordecai. Now they're hearing God's warning and they're saying, oh, watch out, Mordecai. You know what? If you do anything to hurt these Jews, and Mordecai or any of the Jews, when you already wrote this note, do you realize that their God is real? And they started to feel the power of his realness in their heart. They're like, he will protect his people. This God will protect the Jews and anyone who believes in him and loves him and wants to follow him and have him as their God. Don't mess with them. Don't do any trouble. Stay away, or else you might get killed, and you don't want that to happen. You need to stay away from them. But he didn't really want to hear that. He heard it, and God gave him a chance to repent and to say he's sorry, but he didn't. He still stayed on the side of anger and hate inside, and he didn't understand why his family was trying to warn him. And all of a sudden, you could hear the horses running up. And they came, the servants of the king, and they said, "Time to go to the second banquet, Haman." And they got him right away, and they took him right away to the second party. Now, the second party, here's the chance again. Queen Esther's still praying to God, "Please tell my heart what to do, what to say, how to do it, how to say it. I don't know." And so while they're there, the king says to her during the meal, "What's your request, Queen Esther? I'll give you up to half the kingdom. What do you want?" And she said, "Well, if I have found favor in your sight, if I make you happy and you have a pleasant heart when I'm near you, if it makes you happy and if it's an idea you agree with, please grant me my life as my petition." And he's like, "Your life? What do you mean?" She says, "And also the lives of my people, the Jews." See, she's now having the bravery and courage from God, giving it to her, the right words and the power to be brave. God gives us the power to be brave. And now she's saying, "Please give me my life and my people, the Jews, my life. They are my people. We were going to be killed and have to die in 1 year. And if we were only going to be slaves, and if I didn't have to come in and try to come in your presence when I wasn't invited and be at risk of being killed by you, I would never have bothered you. But because this was not just about being slaves, but actually being killed and wiped out of the land, I knew I needed to risk my life to come talk to you, my king." The king was very protective of Queen Esther. He loved her. He's like, "Oh, who would do this? And where are they? Like, where's this person? Like, who would even think up and scheme such a horrible, wicked plan?" Oh, and the queen said, "Well, actually, the one, that man you're looking for that thought this up, and he hates us enough to kill us, he's actually in this room." And the king said, "In this room?" And he said, "Yes, he's right beside you, right there. Haman, he is the one." And as soon as Esther pointed and showed that it was Haman, and the king looked at Haman, Haman stood up, and he was scared. He was terrified, because he knew that the king had power to kill him. And he knew the king was upset now because Haman had tricked the king by writing stuff the king didn't know, using his ring to stamp, and so Haman was going to be in a huge trouble. So the king was furious, and he left the room, and he went out to try to find the police, and he wanted the police to come get Haman. And while he went out, then Haman ran over to the queen to talk to her. "Queen Esther, please, change your mind, like, let me live." And the queen sat back on a couch. And when she sat back, Haman went and leapt at her and leaned on her and was like on top of her knees and was trying to grab her shoulders and was saying, "Please, I don't want to die." But yeah, he didn't care about killing all of those Jews, which I don't even know what the number would be. It's a big, big number. He was only concerned about himself. And so he was begging, and then the king came back in the room with the police. And he looked at Haman grabbing his wife on top of her on the couch. And he said, "Have you no decency?" He said, while I'm even nearby, you're going to attack my wife, the queen?" And he was so mad. He says, "Guards, please take him away." And the guards, and they said, "Take him to jail, take him away, get him out of here." And the guards said, "Well, actually, king, there's gallows out there. There's the stage with the wood and the rope. Do you want to use them to kill Haman?" And immediately the king said, "Yes, hang him," because he knew that Haman had that murder idea of murdering all the Jews, and that his wife, Queen Esther, was a Jew, and he knew that he was tricked. And so he said, "Kill him," because he was going to kill a whole bunch of people. The Haman guy was going to. So Actually, it was very weird because the actual gallows that were built for Mordecai, that Haman wanted to use for Mordecai, God flipped the story. So now God is going to use those gallows to kill Haman, because that was what God knew was the justice and the right thing to do for Haman's hate and attack on his own people. So that was part of God's justice. So the king, awarded Esther after Haman died. He gave Queen Esther all of Haman's houses and land and property and vineyards and whatever he owned, animals. Everything is now, the king said, Queen Esther, you can have this now. And Mordecai was going to be the manager and do that and take care of the land that now Queen Esther owned. But he was also going to get a new job, and he was going to work inside the palace, right by the king, instead of being outside listening a little bit from a distance as a guard on the outside. Now he was inside with the king, and he got a special job that was more important. And now Esther told her husband, the king Xerxes, Queen Esther said, Mordecai is actually my father that adopted me. He was my cousin, but he's a family. And so the king said, we need to bring him in. Let's bring him in. And then he's part of our family. And he took him in, very close to working with the king and being close to the king's heart. And he actually was given a job that was like second in power to the king. Very, very important. But even though all these good things were happening, the plan to kill the Jews was still happening. The law was written and it couldn't be changed, and Esther didn't know what to do, and the Jews were still upset. So she bravely came in. I think is this the third time or the second time? Anyway, she came in again without being invited to the king. And he held out his gold scepter. She touched it, and she was weeping and weeping and crying and crying. And she was so upset. And she said, this plan that Haman made the rule, and it's still gonna happen, and I need help. I need mercy. I've been praying to God, but I know that God also wants you, King, to have mercy. He wants you to help us. And so the king, put it out so she could get up off the floor, and then she talked to him and looked to him and told him all of her feelings with her heart, face to face. And he listened to everything. And she says, please, I need you to fix this problem. I need you to write a new law and make it so it'll stop the killing of the Jews. They're my people. And I could never bear it in my heart. I would have a heart attack and die. I would have so much pain and agony inside. I would feel horrible to watch all of them be destroyed and to be the only one left living. I want my people, my family, my nation, my group of Jews to live. So the king said, well, I've hanged Haman for attacking you, and I gave his property to you, Queen Esther, but now I need you, Queen Esther, you and Mordecai, to write a new law. I'll give you my ring now, which he had already taken off of Haman's hand. He says, I'm going to give you my ring now, you and Mordecai. Write out whatever you need to protect the Jews. We'll make a new rule again, which hopefully we can get passed out and written out on enough pieces of paper and passed out to all the different people in the land before this timeline gets smaller and gets closer to the time where they were going to kill all of the Jews. Let's try to race it and make it happen really fast. Hopefully they can stop a war from breaking out. So all of the royal writers were brought in for everyone to start writing on all of the different pieces of paper. And they used their little fountain pens made with feathers and little black ink, and they were writing down all the things, and they kept stamp with the king's ring, and they're getting it all ready. And then they gave it to the very fast, speedy horses of the royal horses, and everyone was running everywhere, passing out mail, and trying to get them to read it. And the people who were the readers would would open up and say, hear ye, this is a new law to cancel out the old law. Please have respect this new rule as overriding the other. This new rule says that if anybody tries to hurt the Jews, they will be hurt by the king's soldiers. Or if you are a Jew and someone is trying to come and kill or hurt you, you're allowed to protect yourself. And you're allowed to be, just like a policeman or a soldier would fight in battle, you're allowed to fight back and protect your life. And it will not be looked at as something for you to go to jail. You are allowed by the king's words to protect your life. So Mordecai was given a special job after doing all of this. Everyone was happy that he was given the power of the king's ring and the ability to make this new law. And the king dressed him up in blue and white fancy clothes with a large gold crown on his head. And he had a purple robe on top of these blue and white clothes. And whenever he would drive around, people would shout and they'd say, "Hooray! Thank you, Mordecai, thank you. God is blessing us through Mordecai. God is blessing us through Esther." They were so happy they could see that God was at work. So they were pretty excited. And they had a big time of celebration with the new rule that went out. And everyone was very happy. And they were having parties and eating and drinking to celebrate that God is sending a help for their problem. Now, the day of the fighting didn't even come yet. They were already thanking God ahead of time. And that's what we need to do too, is when we have a problem, when we bring it to God and we pray about it, and we believe that he's going to be helping us, and we can see hope that he's helping us. As soon as you see that sign of hope, believe that he will protect you and he will win, and start to celebrate, start to cheer him on. And that's the exciting part. And so they did this. They had all this party, and they wanted to, and there's other people that were not Jews that wanted to join the Jews. They wanted to come and have God as their God. They saw the miracle that happened with God starting to show that he's going to protect them. And so they wanted to join and become a Jew too, and have God as their God. So that's really cool. So then the day finally came when that was the day of the big fight. And some people thought, well, everyone received the new rule from the king, but not everyone may obey it. Some people may just hate the Jews for no reason and want to fight anyway. And so a lot of people had decided not to fight, but some decided to still fight. So people fought and tried to fight against the Jews, but God helped the Jews to win. And so other people became afraid, and they started to run away and quit and say, "I can't do this, I'm not winning, I'm going to get hurt." And they ran away and hid. So, and the people who worked around Mordecai in the kingdom, they knew that he was a Jew, and they really liked him, and they were happy to have a good person that was given a good job by the king, because they didn't like Haman. They knew he was not a good person. Mordecai is really good, so they were happy. So they didn't want to hurt the Jewish people because they loved Mordecai, and they didn't know what Mordecai might do for a rule against them if they hurt his people. So he's like, let's help Mordecai. And so they decided that. And Mordecai always spoke wonderful words of love and peace. He tried to help the Jews. He tried to help them with the kingdom. And everyone saw that God was blessing Mordecai's life. It was wonderful. So the people, though, that decided to keep hating the Jews, even though there was no reason to, and they chose to keep fighting anyways, they ignored God, and they actually got hurt and killed, and God helped it to happen because they were fighting in their hearts against God. They really had bad feelings of anger and hate for no reason, and they were doing something completely wrong. So they ended up died. And what happens when you die is you go to meet God in heaven anyway. So they would go right up and have to have time to talk to God about what they've done right away. So that's not good. And I think they probably would have wished they had made a better choice when they were down here. So then they started to talk about information, and they gave all the report of the soldiers, started to give the report of what the war was like that day, what happened, and they told King Esther and King Xerxes and Queen Esther. So when they told them, the king asked the queen, "What more should I do? What do you want done? What can I do for you? I'll give you anything." And the Esther says, "Well, if it makes you happy, can we just have one more day of fighting? Because there's a lot of people who still hate and want to kill the Jews, and they're not gone yet. They're still out there. So let's get a second day, so till they're all scared off and they all stop fighting against us. Otherwise, we won't really be safe. It'll just happen another day." So he said, "Okay, and one more day of fighting." So they did a second day of fighting, and then it was done. And the third day, they rested, and they all had feasts and joys of party. And that makes me think of Jesus, where he died on one day, day one, and on the third day, he rose again, and everyone had a party to celebrate that he was alive again, and that what he did on the cross was now reason to celebrate everything. And it was a big party. He had conquered death and their desire to kill him. Jesus was a Jew, so they were trying to kill him, but God brought him back to life. So that was great. They finished it all off. They had parties. They gave gifts to each other. They gave gifts to poor people. And every year they have this party, but they start the party off at first where they say, "Never forget, let's have Esther's fast." They call it Esther's fast, where for 3 days and 3 nights we will not eat or drink anything, to remember how we had to beg God for mercy and ask him for help and turn our hearts to him and not forget him like we were starting to forget him. And we need to remember him and to worship and honor him and to put him first in our mind and heart. Obey what he's telling us to say and do in our hearts and minds, and put him first. And we'll do that 3 days first, where we remember that horrible time of not knowing what's going to happen, and we'll call it Esther's fast. And right after that's done, then we will have the Purim party. And the Purim party, or Purim, Purim, the word Pur is for all of those little lots that a long time ago that Haman was pulling out to see what month, and trying to find the shortest stick to see what month he would actually do all of the fighting on and have the soldiers kill the Jews. Horrible. But that word pur, is the lots, and that's why they call it Purim, because they want to remember what that man had done as a way of trying to harm them, and they want to celebrate that God's mercy and his kindness came in, and God says, "No, I'm not going to let you hurt my people." And so that was really, really nice to remember. So they have this, they speak words of love and peace, and they tell the truth to each other, and they keep helping every little child to know the story as they grow up. Then they have their own kids, so they tell those children. So they want all the time, since way back then in the Bible, even now, they still celebrate Purim, the festival of Purim. And they are doing it this year on March 13th and March 14th, this year, 2025. So it's on your calendar. And it's interesting because if you see that word now, I think you'll remember the story and how dangerous it was, and how God helped Esther to be put into the kingdom for the right time and the right place, to be working for him as his servant, to be able to save the Jews. So nowadays, when the Jews have a Purim party, they listen to the book of Esther written in their church. And anytime the people talk about Haman when they're reading it, like a play, some of them wear costumes and they act it out. Whenever they talk about Haman, they all say, "Boo, boo," because they don't like him. And they do that as they remember the joy of God saving them and helping them. And they'll send food to other people, and they'll give money and food to charity and to help those in need. To anyone who's poor, they'll give them stuff they need. And then, they have a big party of a meal, and they'll even have parades in the streets. So it's so important that we remember that God is there for us nowadays too. not just for back then. Nowadays, we worship God, but we also worship Jesus Christ. And Jesus is our Savior. And he was a Jew. And there's still the devil, the enemy Satan, is still angry at Jesus and the Jews and at Christians. So we have to still think about God and pray to him every day, keep him first in our minds and hearts, get to know him more, read scripture, read the Bible, pray, and we grow and grow so that we can know him closer and trust and see these stories in the Bible and know that God can protect us. That when there's people that are filled with hate like Haman in the world for no reason, hating for no reason at all, that we know that this world is really protected and loved and controlled in a sense by God to all those who look at him. And anyone else who does not look at God and hates and doesn't like God and hates God and is angry at God, that we have to still look at God and still love him and know that the other people are actually in their heart are being bothered by bad ideas from the devil who's at war and fighting against God. But God will always win over the devil, over everything that's bad, every evil plan. God will always win. And so we need to remember that and remember people who joined the Jews. They wanted to be having to have God as their leader. And we want God as our leader too. So I think it's important that we remember that and that we remember all the special details of this story. There's so many little lessons in here all throughout. So if you're sleeping now, I just want to tell you in your dreams that I love you very much and that God is there with you in your dreams at day and at night all the time. And just remember to put him first and to get to know him more and more, and he will help you through every problem you face. All right, I'm going to say goodbye for now. I love you, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.